When a business wants to gain new customers, they try to make it as easy as possible for people to do business with them. They emphasize the benefits of their product or service, and they try to make it as inexpensive as possible. They work hard to eliminate barriers to prevent people from buying their product or service. Over the past several decades, many churches have adopted that mindset when they do evangelism. They employ evangelistic methods that treat Christianity as a consumer product that needs to be sold. They try to make it as easy as possible to become a Christian. They emphasize the benefits and minimize the cost. However, today we will see in Luke 9 that Jesus did not have that perspective. His statement about being one of his followers reveals that Christianity is not a product that needs to be sold. Instead, Christianity is a call to serve. One time Jesus was praying alone. The disciples were with him, and Jesus asked, "Who do the crowd say that I am?" After receiving several answers, he asked, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter correctly said Jesus is the Christ. Then Jesus warned that he was about to be killed, but that he would rise from the dead. The story continues at verse 23. And Jesus was saying to them all, "If anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." There has been a trend in evangelicalism over the past several decades to be seeker-sensitive and use modern business marketing tactics to grow the church. Thus, many churches emphasize the benefits of being a Christian and minimize the cost. They supposedly make it easy to join the church. They don't have high standards for people to join their organization. They place very few demands upon the people in their church. They design their services and programs to cater to the demands of the general public. Jesus did the opposite. He demanded that people deny themselves and take up their cross. In their culture, when a person carried a cross, it meant he was on his way to be crucified. In other words, Jesus stated there is a high cost to follow him. Jesus used the word daily. We have to take up our cross every day. As a Christian, each and every day should be spent serving Jesus. If a true church wants to gain true converts, it needs to teach a true gospel. That message needs to be clear about the cost. Being a Christian is not being a consumer of a consumer product. Instead, being a Christian is being a servant of Jesus. Verse 24. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake, he is the one who will save it. If we take the safe and easy path here on earth in order to have a safe, prosperous life here on earth, then we will actually lose our life because we will spend eternity in hell. However, if we deny ourselves here on earth and risk death and condemnation by serving Jesus, then we will actually save our life because we will spend eternity in heaven. Verse 25. For what is a man profited if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? No amount of earthly wealth is a benefit if we spend eternity in a lake of fire. Verse 26. For whoever is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of him when he comes in his glory, and the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. But I say to you truthfully, there are some of those standing here who will not taste death until they see the kingdom of God. Now it happened some 8 days after these words, that taking along Peter and John and James, he went up on the mountain to pray. And it happened that while he was praying, the appearance of his face became different, and his clothing became white and gleaming. And behold, 2 men were talking with him, and they were Moses and Elijah, who, appearing in glory, were speaking of his departure which he was about to fulfill at Jerusalem. Now Peter and his companions had been overcome with sleep, but when they were fully awake, they saw his glory and the 2 men standing with him. And it happened that as they were leaving him, Peter said to Jesus, Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 booths, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah, not realizing what he was saying. According to Deuteronomy 18:15, Yahweh promised to raise up another prophet like Moses. Malachi 4:5 tells us Yahweh would send Elijah again before the day of the Lord. Peter and his companions knew this, and when they awoke, they saw Moses and Elijah with Jesus. Peter thought it would be a good idea to make a booth for each one of them. The Greek word that Peter used is the same Greek word that was used in the New Testament to refer to the tabernacle that the Israelites made at Mount Sinai and carried through the wilderness. Verse 34. While he was saying this, a cloud formed and began to overshadow them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud. Then a voice came out of the cloud saying, This is my son, my chosen one, listen to him. The problem with Peter's idea was that it would make Moses and Elijah equal to Jesus. However, Moses and Elijah were men just like you and me. Jesus, meanwhile, is different than you and me. He is God himself. Verse 36. And when the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone, and they kept silent and reported to no one in those days any of the things which they had seen. Now it happened on the next day that when they came down from the mountain, a large crowd met him. And behold, a man from the crowd shouted, saying, Teacher, I beg you to look at my son, for he is my only one. And behold, a spirit seizes him, and he suddenly screams, and it throws him into a convulsion with foaming at the mouth, and only with difficulty does it leave him, mauling him as it leaves. And I begged your disciples to cast it out, and they could not. We read in Luke 9:1 that prior to this, Jesus had sent the 12 out to preach, and he gave them power and authority over demons. Luke 9:10 tells us the apostles returned and recounted everything they had done. When Jesus came down from the mountain, he was informed that his disciples were unable to cast out this demon. Jesus only took Peter, James, and John up on the mountain for the transfiguration. We assume that the rest of the 12 were the ones who were asked to cast out the demon. If that is correct, then it speaks poorly of them that they were not able to cast it out because they had recently received power over demons. Verse 40 does not specifically say the Father asked one of the 12 to cast it out. It only says he asked the disciples of Jesus to cast it out. Jesus had many disciples in addition to the 12. Having said all that, it is likely that some of the apostles were part of the group that was not able to cast out this demon. Verse 41. And Jesus answered and said, You unbelieving and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you and put up with you? Bring your son here. Many people live by the philosophy that if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything. However, Jesus did not live by that belief. He called the people a perverse generation. He criticized them for their unbelief. If indeed it was some of the apostles who were not able to cast out the demon, it was due to a lack of belief. Verse 42. Now while he was still approaching, the demon slammed him to the ground and threw him into a convulsion. But Jesus rebuked the unclean spirit and healed the boy and gave him back to his father. And they were all astonished at the majesty of God. When a business wants to gain new customers, they try to make it as easy as possible for people to do business with them. They emphasize the benefits of their product or service, and they try to make it as inexpensive as possible. On the other hand, when a business hires new employees, they take a different approach. They have standards that need to be met. They make it clear that they have expectations of their employees. Many churches do evangelism by treating Christianity as a consumer product that needs to be sold. However, Jesus emphasized the cost of being Christian. True Christians and true churches need to have the mentality that Christianity is not a product to be sold. Instead, it is a call to serve Jesus. Thanks for visiting Bible Mountain. If you have already joined my email list, thank you, and please tell others about Bible Mountain. If you have not joined my email list yet, please do so now. In order to join, go to BibleMountain.com, click on subscribe, and that will take you to a page where you can sign up. Your email address will not be sold nor given away. Once again, thanks for visiting Bible Mountain.